Okay, so once you've done some initial research and analysis on your store and you've been able to see how you're currently performing from an SEO standpoint, the next step of the process is to actually start building out your SEO strategy, or what I like to call your organic sales machine. So I like to break down the organic sales machine into 4 key areas or pillars. The first one being on-page SEO. So optimizing everything on your website or on page. Specifically with e-commerce stores, this mainly evolves around optimizing your collection and product pages. The second pillar is technical SEO, so fixing any technical issues that are currently going on your site and making sure that we're looking at these on an ongoing basis as well. So certain technical tasks may be looking at improving how well the site loads. So site speed optimization might be looking at seeing if there's any broken links on the site that need to be fixed. So these are a few examples of some technical SEO tasks that need to be looked at on an ongoing basis. The third pillar is your SEO content strategy, and traditionally this evolves around your blog, but this may be also creating guides or resources that are properly optimized around the right keywords to drive more traffic to your store. And then finally, the fourth pillar is still one of the most widely strongest ranking factors, which is building backlinks to your website, or the process of link building. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these 4 pillars in a little bit more detail now. So the first one being on-page SEO and optimizing specifically your collection and product pages. So the first part of this process really is to analyze if you're actually ranking for any keywords for your collection and product pages, and then doing some further research to then start assigning a primary or main keyword for each of your product and collection pages. Okay, so as a rule of thumb, like I said, we focus on optimizing and mapping out one primary keyword to each of your collection and product pages. And then we also use secondary and supporting keywords as well. And then once you've done that initial process, you need to then start writing and mapping out the on-page SEO elements on the page. So looking at optimizing your H1, your headline tag, looking at optimizing your collection and product descriptions, adding in internal links, optimizing your SEO title and meta description. These are all aspects of the page that are going to help you to rank higher up on Google. Now, you might be wondering, well, how do I go about doing this? Well, I've actually created a keyword research and on-page SEO template, which you can follow along and use for your own website. There should be a link around this video for you to access this template. But if you have any questions regarding that, you could actually send me an email at charles@finetuneseo.co, and I'll be happy to help guide you through some of that process as well. Finally, what I would advise doing is having a set priority of pages to focus on first and foremost when you're doing the optimization. Typically with e-commerce stores, you probably find that you've got hundreds, if not thousands of pages. So you need to prioritize which pages you're going to optimize first. I like to focus on pages that are already ranking either on the second or third page of Google for relevant keywords, because if you could actually optimize those pages first, then you can bump those rankings up to the first page of Google. Or we kind of work with, I would work with a client to see what products have a high AOV or demand or high profit margin, because we want to make sure that, you don't want to be optimizing for products and collections that aren't actually driving a lot of revenue for your business. You want to be focusing around, products that have got strong demand, or they're relevant and So I'm going to go into each of these pillars now. So the first pillar is on-page SEO, which is, as I mentioned, focusing primarily on optimizing your collection and product pages. And this is where we're going to be going in on a granular level and optimizing each of those pages, analyzing if those pages are actually ranking for any keywords at the moment, doing some initial keyword research, and then mapping relevant keywords to each of those pages. As a rule of thumb, I like to focus on ranking one main primary keyword and targeting one per page. So the first pillar is on-page SEO. Now, with an e-commerce store, you're going to be spending the majority of your time optimizing your collection and product pages. If you're like many e-commerce stores, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of collection and product pages. So we want to go in on a granular level and start analyzing each of these pages, seeing if they're actually ranking for any keywords at the moment, and then doing some further keyword research to start establishing what keywords you actually want to rank for your collection and product pages. Now, as a rule of thumb, I like to select one main primary keyword to target per page. And then you can also use some secondary and supporting keywords that relate to that primary keyword. But that's one rule that I always like to stick to. And then once you have your main primary keyword that you want to target for that page, you can then start to write and map out the on-page SEO elements and use that primary keyword within those elements. So, for example, adding the primary keyword to your H1, your headline on your page, adding it to your product or collection description, and also including that in your SEO title and your meta description as well. Now, you're probably wondering kind of like, how do you go about doing this? Obviously, I've provided you with a very brief overview of the different elements on that page. However, I've actually created a keyword research and on-page SEO template, which maps out all of these SEO elements and shows you how to do the keyword research and analyze each of your pages on your website. If you want to access this template, there should be a link around this video for you to click on that link. But if you have any further questions, then feel free to email me at charles@finetuneseo.co, and I'll be happy to kind of guide you through how to use the spreadsheet. So the next pillar of a solid SEO strategy is technical SEO. Now, I would always make sure that you're doing a thorough technical SEO audit at the start of your campaign and fixing any major issues at the beginning before you start layering on any other optimization work, such as your content strategy, link building, even the on-page SEO. But technical SEO with regards to e-commerce stores, there's going to be ongoing regular checks, and you want to make sure that you're reviewing that on a regular basis, especially given the sheer volume of pages that most e-commerce sites have. There's always technical issues that arise that you want to make sure that you get a handle on. Now, a few tools that I would recommend for doing technical SEO tasks and highlighting any issues would be Google Search Console, which is a free tool that you can use. But if you want to go into more detail, then there's tools like Screaming Frog, Sitebulb, Content King. These are all great website crawlers and auditing tools to establish if there's any major technical issues that are wrong with your website. In terms of kind of common e-commerce site issues or technical issues that I see, typically it's things like a non-clean URLs and complex URL structures. For example, your URLs are too long. You don't have the main primary keyword that you're targeting in your URL. You may have like hyphens and numbers. These are really difficult for Google to crawl. So that's a common thing that I see. And also duplicate content issues. If you have products and collections that are very similar, then often the content on that page is very similar, and you could be seen as duplicate content issues, and that arises various different issues moving forward. So that's something that you need to look at getting addressed. The other thing to look at is making sure you're doing regular site speed checks and making any improvements there. Obviously, if your website loads slowly, then that's going to have an impact on not only the user experience, but sales and also how well your site ranks. And then the other thing that I would look at implementing as part of a kind of technical SEO plan is making sure that you've got schema markup or what's called structured data implemented on your store. An example of structured data would be when you see a website that has star reviews underneath in search. So if I give you an example here, if we typed in horse riding equipment, you'll see the first link that shows up has got this star rating underneath it. Now that is structured data. And the great thing about that is that shows the user additional information about this page. And it's also more eye-catching than some of the other links. So if you're scrolling down Google, you're more likely to click on a link that shows the star rating than one that doesn't. So that's something that I would recommend looking to get set up. If you're not from a technical background, then there are some apps or Shopify apps specifically that you can install to start implementing that. And there's various forms of structured data that you can use. I obviously won't go into too much detail in this video now, but you can delve into that in a little bit more detail by doing your own research. There is actually schema.org, which shows you various different schemas that you can add to your store. And specifically with e-commerce stores, you want to be looking around the product schema. Okay. So moving on to the third pillar or third area of a successful SEO e-commerce strategy, which is building out your content plan, specifically around your blog or producing blogs, guides, and resources. What I would describe as your tofu or mofu content, which SEM Rush here nicely explains. So your top of the funnel content would be people that become aware of the problem that you can solve. So you'll want to be producing content that not only provides value, but helps solve a problem or really provides them with an education about your industry, which in turn is going to get that user more familiar with your brand and is more likely then going to buy your products. In terms of content, I always recommend producing at least 2 to 4 pieces of content as a rule of thumb. Obviously, the more quality content that you can produce, the better. One thing I would be wary of, though, is we've seen the emergence of AI content, and a lot of brands are starting to, cut down on writer cost in order to use AI content and produce content at mass. I would be wary of this mainly because Google are starting to clamp down on AI content, and they're making a lot of changes at the moment. However, if you are going to go down the route of AI content, I would couple that with actually using a writer basically to edit the content and make improvements and tweaks to it, and making sure that the content is accurate rather than just using AI and then publishing it on your website, which isn't likely to rank that well. One tool that I'd recommend is Content at Scale. I think they do a pretty good job of creating high quality AI content. Having said that, like I said, do be careful when you are using AI content. The Google are changing and updating their algorithm constantly to try and tackle the, just low quality mass AI content. So yeah, if you want to stay on the safer side, I would still hire a human writer to actually write content for your blog. Some additional blog benefits here. So it provides us with a internal linking opportunity. So we can actually, if you're driving traffic to your blogs, you can then create links within your blogs to your collection and product pages. And in turn, that actually helps those collection product pages rank higher up in Google. So it's a great opportunity to to pass authority through to those collection and product pages and get those ranking higher as well. You can repurpose that content on social media. So whether you create smaller written posts from that blog post, or you can convert that written blog post into a video that you can share. So there's many purposes that you can use for that blog. And you also become the go-to authority in your market. I always say, educate first and then sell later. If you're providing a resource online around your niche or topic that people actually want to read on a regular basis, then eventually they see you as the authority in that field, and you're building more trust with your brand, and in turn they're more likely to go out and buy your products. And then finally, it's a great backlink opportunity. So we often find if you're producing high quality content, then other websites are going to naturally want to link to that piece of content as well. Thanks. So the final pillar of building out a successful SEO strategy is link building. So link building is basically a tactic that involves getting another website to link to your website. So building a backlink, basically. Now, link building has evolved a lot over the years. What used to work well now is probably deemed as spammy and is not actually going to have a positive impact on your rankings. But there are a few simple rules that I like to follow when I'm looking at building out backlinks. The first one is I'll never buy cheap links from overseas vendors, and I recommend that you don't do the same. The reason being is that most of these vendors that try to sell you links are selling them to everyone. And I always say, if anyone can get that link, then it's typically of low value. Okay. So they've got this huge database of publishers that they work with. And most of them are usually from low quality websites as well. So I would avoid buying any cheap links. The saying goes, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Secondly, I'd always analyze the site that you're getting a link from. So I would be looking at the content on that website. Is it of high value? Is it relevant to your niche? Ideally, you want to build links from websites that are within your niche or related niches. For example, if you have a gardening website or an e-commerce gardening website selling lawnmowers, then getting a link from a gardening blog would be a high quality, relevant link. Whereas if you're getting a link from a casino website, then it's completely unrelated to that niche. So that's going to be super important as well. I would also be looking at the link profile of the website that you want to get a link from. So do they have high quality backlinks themselves, or is 95% of their link profile spammy? If that is the case, then I would avoid getting a link from that website. And then finally, I'd always, when it comes to your link building strategy, you always want to see how you can provide value up front in order to get exchange for that link. Because if you're just asking for a link from a website, the chances are they're going to completely ignore you, because it provides no value to them for them to change a link or add a link to their website. So you have to look at what is your strategy there and what value are you providing up front to that publisher or website in order to get that link. Now, when it comes to your link building activities, I always suggest try and keep it simple. You want to be selecting just, I would say, one link building tactic and really go and hammer that one tactic first before then you start adding on additional tactics. So you want to master one first and then add on additional layers if you want to in the future. So the 4 that I would recommend are guest blogs. So writing a blog for another website, and then you're providing value to them, and in exchange you can add a link into that blog. Digital PR, reaching out. There are various websites where you can submit a feature to get in a publication. You might be responding on some commentary about a particular topic in your market. Niche edits is basically where the content of the page on another website stays the same, but you're basically just getting them to change the link within the article or page to point to your site. And this is usually the way that you could do this often is if that page is linking out to an old resource, you can create a more updated resource around that topic and then reach out to that site to say, look, we've created a better version. You're linking out to old, outdated information. Could you link out to us, basically? So in a nutshell, that's kind of how you do it. There are a few ways to optimize that process, but that is basically what a niche edit is. And then finally, podcast, which is actually one of my favorites, which is going out and getting featured on podcasts, because it not only makes you the go-to authority in your market, but it's a great link building opportunity. And I'll give you kind of an example here. So I actually run my own podcast called The Charles Travers Show. And I recently interviewed Patrick Kidd from Patrick's, and he basically runs a store that sells men's hair products. So when I'm basically publishing the podcast, I'm featuring it on Spotify, Apple Podcast. I'm putting it on my YouTube channel. I'm syndicating it across a number of different podcast websites. And in the show notes, I'm linking back to the guest's website. So now Patrick has got a number of backlinks because he went on my podcast. So for me, that's just an easy way to get and build backlinks, because it actually means less work for you. You can go out, you can get featured on a podcast, and then actually the podcaster is doing a lot of the link building for you. In terms of trying to build backlinks, I always suggest to aim for around 2 to 4 quality links per month, as a rule of thumb. But the more quality links you can build to your site, the better. But I'd always focus on quality over quantity. Okay. So that basically wraps up my SEO game plan for how you can optimize your e-commerce store to grow your organic traffic and online sales.